Later in his career, one of Shakespeare's contemporaries, Ben Jonson, sneered that Shakespeare knew small Latin and less Greek, which is pretty ironic considering how rigorous the education here would have been. By the time he left school at the age of 16, Shakespeare would have known more Latin than any classics graduate at university today. He'd have been saturated in the ancient world. He'd have read Pliny and Aristotle and Socrates and Plato, all the great classical philosophers and historians and natural scientists. The century before his birth had seen a rediscovery in classical knowledge, a rebirth, as it was called, a renaissance of knowledge, fueled by the printing press. But what excites me even more about the 16th century, more than the Renaissance of the 15th century, is that by now we were daring to question this ancient knowledge. We were daring to look for ourselves, making up our own minds as to how the world really works. Rather than just blindly trusting medieval doctors, for instance, with their frankly ignorant ideas as to how the human body works, by now we were performing anatomies, stripping away the flesh, confronting the reality of the human condition. And in a strange kind of way, this is exactly what Shakespeare was doing in his plays. He was showing us as we really are, as multi-layered human beings with all of our subtleties and our contradictions. And it was this growing sense of self-awareness, self-knowledge in the 16th century that drags us out of the medieval into the modern.
Shakespeare came to London as a travelling player in the year 1588. What he encountered here in London was a world of horizons pushed back. Elizabethan London spilled beyond the boundaries of the old medieval walled city. Houses fronted the river now down to Westminster, and on the south bank in Southwark, beyond the control of the old city guilds, there stood brothels and theatres and taverns, the earthy exuberance of a rich and varied life.
If I had to sum up in one word what was new about Shakespeare's London, I'd say it was cosmopolitan. The word quite literally means moving beyond national boundaries, and London did that too. The Thames was full of shipping. City merchants were trading with Europe. They were backing ventures as far afield as Russia, the Americas, India. Just upriver from here, there's a replica of the Golden Hind, the ship in which Sir Francis Drake sailed round the world. We'd never been more connected. But I'm not talking about cosmopolitan just in the sense of geography. I'm talking about a state of mind. People who are cosmopolitan, they're subtle, they're sophisticated, they're witty, they're urban. They've got minds open to every experience, the high life, the low life, and that's what Shakespeare had. And he took all of this rich experience and he served it up at the Globe, what he called his wooden O. And his audience, who got his wavelength, they lapped it up. And in this flowering of ideas and intellect, we moved as a nation from the old to the new.